Good morning, everyone. I haven't seen this news on other media outlets yet. I tagged this morning just to tell you to fill up because it looks like we could be in for a shortage. I'm not sure. Here's Dan McTeague, and he says, all eyes on Ontario. Gas supply. Refineries over the next couple of days as they try to manage a decision by a Michigan court that stops all oil shipments via Line 5 Enbridge that transits through that state. Look to supply disruption at gas bars as they are placed on allocation. Okay, so the shortage would be because compliance, right? And so I haven't seen this anywhere. So fill up. If you haven't, maybe get a gas can. Maybe two. Here is moving on in other news. This is interesting. I haven't seen the big news articles on this yet either, but this I think is notable. Stephen Murins, excuse me if I got that wrong. He says, interesting. In response to a question from RMD Kenny at Marco Mendocino, Marco's a pro, tells CIMM that part of his mandate is to create a new pathway to Canadian permanent residency for human rights activists. Do you want to be just welcoming human rights activists willy-nilly into Canada just by virtue of being a human rights activist? Like, can it be any human rights? Can you choose, or does the government of Canada have to agree with the human rights that you are propagating? Right? I don't know. Because there are countries in the world that have very different values than Canada, and the human rights that they would be trying to put forward would be very different, right? So, I mean, what kind of human rights? These are questions, the details matter, right? The details matter. When you agree with a piece of legislation, when you agree and you say, oh yeah, they should definitely be doing that, man, they could sneak in some really, really crazy human rights activists under this line, right? Who says that's a mandate? Why is that important? Human rights activists. Troublemakers? You want to import troublemakers from other countries? Good move, morons. Okay, National Post is reporting, records show charity closely linked to Trudeau has received multiple sole source contracts from Liberal government. The trick here, and this was noted by Katie Telford during Jody Wilson-Raybould's testimony, and I can't remember the context of this, but I remember hearing about this a lot during that time. Don't know why. But they would have no bid contracts. So if the contract is over, say, $25,000 or $5,000, depending on what the thing is, like laptops, right? If it's over 5,000, infrastructure like office equipment over 25,000. So they would put in like 24,500, so they don't have to go public with the contract, so they can just give it to whoever they want, right? This is, and the article says this is a well-known trick, like parliamentary trick, and not liberal, conservative, everybody does it, but this is our tax dollars. This is money that is being given to a company because they helped in the election, etc. And this We Charity thing stinks. Conflict of interest. And Trudeau's saying that it was a third-party parliamentary committee that made the decision to give the money to We Charity. I'd love to see the documentation on that. Which parliamentary committee? Who was it? What was its makeup? Who was on it? Who sat on it? How long did the decision take? What other charities were in the running? You know. Why is We the only entity in Canada that can manage this? I mean, clearly the federal government can manage this. Phoenix Pay has been a problem since it was implemented, and Curb and other things. There have been many examples people have given in the comments about other payment debacles that the government has gotten itself into. So, I mean, maybe this charity that is, in bed with the Trudeaus, because the Trudeaus. Hey, look at that. There's a picture of the Trudeaus on a We stage. The Trudeaus have a lot to do with them. So maybe they've got a really good office staff and they can actually pay their people better than the Canadian government, right? And maybe the Trudeaus know this. So, maybe this is the responsible decision for a prime minister. But maybe it's cronyism, right? Okay, let's get into this. Here we go. We Charity, which has close ties to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his family, and which will receive millions of dollars to administer a federal student volunteer grant program, which is crazy. It's just subverting the minimum wage, has received a series of exclusively sole source contracts from the federal government over the last 3 years, government records show. Sole source contracts are government contracts that are handed directly to a chosen supplier without the opportunity for others to provide competing bids for the government business. The federal Liberal government announced last week that it had outsourced a student grant program worth over $900 million to We Charity, which will receive at least $19.5 million in fees for the work. Trudeau, whose family has worked closely with the We organization for many years. But records show that this was not the first time the charity received an exclusive contract from the Trudeau government, although it is by far the largest. Now, I wanted to tell you guys a couple of comments on my YouTube video yesterday said, if you take $5,000, which is the top grant, and you times that by 20,000 students, which I think is the goal of the number of students that they want to help, you get $100 million, right? And so where's the other $800 million going? Anyway, isn't that interesting, right? Okay, back to this. According to the government's online database of government contracts, We Charity has received 5 federal contracts worth a total of $120,000 since March 2017. 4 of the 5 contracts have been in the last 15 months, with the most recent and largest until now at $40,000 dated January 2020. What's really concerning about these sole source contracts is that it's the oldest game in Ottawa, the nudge nudge wink wink of putting out contracts just below the threshold to have them put out to public. And those are the contracts that tend to be given to someone who ran your campaign, someone who's involved with you at the party level, the NDP's ethics critic Charlie Angus told National Post. The contracts were for vague services such as management consulting, public relations services, and in 3 cases, other professional services not otherwise specified, according to the data first brought to light by writer and activist Nora Loreto on social media over the weekend. Yeah, interesting stuff. And it's even more interesting just how everybody's kind of collectively shrugging about this. It's not a small amount of money. It's almost $1 billion. It's a lot of money. Here's some fun facts. Economy posted record plunge in April. Stats can, right? Statistics Canada says the economy saw its largest monthly drop on record in April as it came to a near standstill due to the pandemic, but early indications point to a rebound in May as businesses began to reopen. The agency says gross domestic product fell 11.6% in April, with non-essential businesses shut for the full month, following a 7.5% decline in March. So that's a pretty big drop, right? 20% is a lot. Here's Yahoo, and they're saying a scary number of retail companies are facing bankruptcy amid coronavirus pandemic. GNC has walked through death's doors after knocking on it for years, and it's likely others will follow suit this year's COVID-19 pandemic continues its devastation of America's retail sector. So this is more the U.S., but we mirror the U.S. quite well, especially in retail trends. And so that's not too different here. There's a lot of very, very struggling businesses or right on the bubble. Either they've already folded or they're going to fold unless things get back to normal very, very quickly. And if you've got bills and no revenue, you've just got bills, not a business, right? So like if you've got overhead and buildings that you have to pay for, water and electricity, double internet payments, like if you've got the internet in your business and the internet at your house, all of that just becomes bills that is not making, usually it works for, it pays for itself in the first couple of days of your business, right? Like if you open for June, by June 4th, your overhead's covered, or June 5th, your overhead's covered, right? By June 7th, maybe your staffing's covered and you're making your money carrying on, right? And not all businesses work exactly like that, but that's the idea of business. It needs to sustain itself, right? And that's why the government can never replace an economy. It just doesn't work like that. You cannot just you have to cycle the money, right? Like, okay, here's another example of more businesses shutting down, right? Cineplex loses $178.4 million in the first quarter as revenues plunge with theater closures. If you don't have revenue, you have bills, okay? And it's very expensive. And you can't just throw government money at it, because the more government money you throw at it, the more devalued the currency becomes, right? It's not, well, I mean, it's more complicated than it seems, but we are looking at a very, very dire situation. And it's not like we can just cut the interest rate to stimulate growth. We can't just say, we'll make money cheaper. Like, we're already nearly at zero and we're looking at negative rates, right? To make it more enticing to borrow money, cheap money. And that just entices debt. And then when the interest rates necessarily go up, people are not used to having to pay for that. And they fold, right? Moving on to COVID-19, here's an interesting article. Municipalities are trying to mandate masks. I live in one that's mandated masks. And here's the City News article. It says, Ministry of Health says masks will not be mandatory on a provincial level. The province will not move to mandate masks The province will not move to make masks mandatory in public spaces despite an appeal from mayors in the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area. The Ministry of Health said Monday night that the provincial masking policy is not necessary. Markham Mayor Frank Scarpitti has been spearheading the campaign to make masks mandatory in Ontario. He was joined by Toronto Mayor John Tory, Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crombie, Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown, Markham Mayor Frank Scarpitti, Vaughan Mayor Maurizio, I'm not going to try that, sir. Sorry. In a request to make face coverings mandatory indoors provincially. The mayors were hoping the province would put in a provincial order rather than having each individual municipality have to create its own bylaws. However, in a statement, ministry spokesperson Alexandra Hilkeny, excuse me if I've got that wrong, said local medical officials have the authority to institute the same policy. Doing so at a local level would ensure responsiveness to community needs without applying the same policy to regions with little to no COVID, she said. Those who have conditions like asthma and other respiratory illnesses cannot tolerate a mask are being asked to follow other measures like staying home as much as possible, frequently washing hands, blah, 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 blah. The masking, it doesn't go through the fact that wearing a mask all day is... it negatively impacts people's health. And if you're healthy, you don't need to do that. And if you're sick, you don't need to wear the mask all day either. I mean, like, it's not built for that. Humans aren't built for that. It is negative. It negatively impacts you, and you should not be wearing a mask all day. If you are, seriously consider invoking one of the many exemptions. In my city, there are three exemptions to the public order. One of them is being under 2. The second one is you feel that the mask impairs your breathing. And number 3 is you have a medical reason. And you do not need to disclose your medical reason. You don't need to say, I have asthma, or I have whatever. You can just say, I have a medical condition, and you have no right to question that, or me. The exemption applies. See ya, and walk on. This is how you need to be able to speak to people, because they will try and intimidate you. Every time I walk into the Walmart, except for yesterday, the girl was on her phone. So every time I walk into Walmart, though, people come up to me and get upset that I'm not wearing a mask. And I just tell them, and we move on. And I'm not going to wear a mask. Sorry, not happening. Moving on. China's military has received the green light to use a COVID-19 vaccine candidate developed by its research unit at CanSino Biologics after the clinical trials proved it was safe and showed some efficacy. The company said on Monday, yeah, it's totally safe, totally safe. We definitely, here's the headline. China approves COVID-19 vaccine for military use, skips final phase of testing. It's totally safe, no problem. Guys, safe, see? What do you mean I didn't have a needle? What are you talking about? Oh my goodness, it's so crazy. The Ad5 nCoV is one of China's 8 vaccine candidates approved for human trials at home and abroad for the respiratory disease caused by the new coronavirus. The shot also won approval for human testing in Canada. Right? Hey, this Chinese virus works, or this Chinese vaccine works for the Wuhan flu, which I just found out was racist thanks to Global News. Anyway, we're gonna look at that in just a minute. But anyway, I think it's so funny. Like, does the news think that we believe it? Like, does the news think that just posting this makes people think that this is safe? Like, no, I'm not using a Chinese military vaccine. No, sorry. Thank you very much. I'll have HCQ and zinc if I get sick. Thanks. That's all I need. Back to this. China's Central Military Commission approved the use of the vaccine by the military on June 25th for a period of 1 year, CanSino said in a filing. The vaccine candidate was developed jointly by CanSino and Research Institute at the Academy of Military Science. The Ad5 nCoV is currently is limited to military use only, and its use cannot be expanded to a broader vaccination range without the approval of the Logistics Support Department, referring to a Central Military Commission Department, which approves the military use of the vaccine. They're talking about Chinese military, not Canadian military, Chinese military. CanSino declined to disclose whether the inoculation of the vaccine candidate is mandatory or optional, citing commercial secrets in an email to Reuters. So do you think that they're making the vaccine mandatory to their military? Maybe, who knows? Here, back to the article. The phase 1 and 2 clinical trials of the CanSino vaccine candidate showed that it has the potential to prevent disease caused by the coronavirus, which has killed more than 500,000 people globally, but its commercial success cannot be guaranteed, the company said. Yeah, we're pretty sure, but we're not 100% sure. Phase 3, which tests a vaccine's efficacy and safety on many thousands of people, is still to be completed. This step is usually considered the most important for widespread approval according to the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention. So, in the headline, China approves COVID-19 vaccine for military use, implying safety. Says, skips final phase of testing. And then in the article, it says the final phase of testing is usually the most important. Totally safe. No problem. You want to be first up? How about the people at Global News and CTV News? And how about all of the MPs? You guys can take this one first. Let us know how it goes. Here's this. I've been looking at our Canadian media, and they're often tweeting out American stories, but not saying explicitly that they're American stories until you actually get to the article. And this is just a stupid story. So Sacha Baron Cohen, and draw your own conclusions on that one, likes to go and prank people. In this prank, he's trying to lead what are being painted as far-right extremists, 3%ers group at this rally. He's trying to lead them in a racist song. But the devil's in the details. And I just think that it's interesting, the positioning of all of this, considering we're in Canada, and this looks like a stunt that somebody was in on in the organizing of this whole thing. And I don't know. It stinks. It stinks. And it stinks even more because Global News shouldn't be reporting this. Like, this has nothing to do with Canada. It's absolutely 100% narrative pushing. Propaganda trash. Propaganda garbage. Okay? That's the reason I'm showing this to you. This is Global News. While successfully encouraging supporters to sing along with him, Cohen sang offensive lyrics about injecting the Wuhan flu, a racist term for COVID-19. What? That's racist? That's racist now? Here it is. Sacha Baron Cohen crashes far-right rally in disguise, sings a racist song. Okay. So they're trying to backhandedly blame the people for singing along with Cohen for being racist. And I saw the video. It's down here. It doesn't look like there was a lot of people singing along. It looks like people were sitting there going, who the hell is this idiot? It looks uncomfortable. It looks like a staged event that they were using to plant articles like this. Okay? In his last political prank, a disguised Sacha Baron Cohen took to the streets of Olympia, Washington, over the weekend, where he and a faux bluegrass band infiltrated a far-right rally and wound up leading a racist sing-along for some of its attendees. Okay, I scroll down. The Bruno actor reportedly brought his own security team, which kept the 3%ers from putting an end to his practical joke any sooner, according to one of the event's organizers. The organizers said that members of the 3%ers had to physically force themselves through Cohen's security guards before unplugging his microphone and kicking him off stage. I scroll down. Members of the 3%ers have been called racists, fascists, and white supremacists, among many other things. Here are the 3 links that Global is using to justify that in their news article. Here's the fascists. This is from Wobbly, Lozen, and Bastet the Cat God. Okay? He's got 4,500 followers, and this is his Zer's Twitter picture. Okay? You understand how biased this is? And he says, I was not a happy cowgirl when I awoke, but finding out that Sacha Baron Cohen punked a bunch of KKK Ryan fascists has turned my attitude right the F around. Here's the second one. You have to love Sacha Baron Cohen. He manages to get a bunch of racists to do a racist sing-along. No blue check mark here. And who's this guy here? He's got 335 followers. Looks woke, right? This one's a doctor. 51,000 followers, and he says, I'm not a huge fan of Sacha Baron Cohen, but I must admit this is the most excellent trolling of white supremacists. Those are the 3 that Global News uses to use those terms in its article. Shameful. Shameful. This is our media. Shameful. Absolutely shameful. Back to this. The group's website, however, claims they're an inclusive group and welcomes all races, nationalities, religions, and lifestyle preferences so long as they're an American patriot. Yeah. Here's the 3%ers, and they are an American. We stand for freedom, liberty, and the Constitution. We will combat all those who are corrupt, who are America's insurance we are America's insurance policy. We will not see our republic fall. Okay, sure, fine. 3%ers. Why is this pushing Canadian media? What is the point here again? And the point is basically, here's in 2018, 3%ers are Canada's most dangerous extremist group. The most dangerous extremist group? There's 600. Okay, the 3%ers private Facebook group revealed the Alberta chapter has nearly 3,000 members, although the Vice report estimates only 150 to 200 are active. The Ontario group, formed in fall 2017, has more than 600 members, although it's unclear how many are active. This is the most dangerous group in Canada right now? Are you joking? Most dangerous extremist group in Canada in 2018? May 10th, 2018? This is what I mean about being a paper of note. In 2018, I was railing against this bullshit as being absolute fiction. And now, it's fact. Okay? You understand how dangerous this is? How insidious this is? How absolutely propagandistic the global using this garbage as their reference point to call a whole movement racist and white supremacist? Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Here's, if you know anything about one country, two systems in Hong Kong and the British rule of Hong Kong, the 99-year lease and blah, 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 all that stuff, ancient history now. China's taken over Beijing, and for a while they let democracy reign. But, as with everything, they couldn't let it last too long, and now it's time to crack down. Just like the Reddit bans that happened yesterday. Have you been to setit.net yet? They are just shutting down the democracy and saying and doubling down on their communist rule. And we're seeing this across the West, across the Western internet, across Western governments, from everything from school boards all the way up to mayors, provincial and federal. It is absolutely insane what is going on because it's coordinated. George Floyd does not kick off a coordinated protest worldwide. I'm sorry. That just does not happen. You know why? Because people don't care that much. People are busy. People are busy even in lockdown. People are busy. People have got their own stuff to do. And there's a lot of money to be made at fostering this division. Here's the last story for this morning, and it doesn't really fit anywhere else. And I just thought, man, I worked in the school boards. I worked with marginalized youth. I worked with autistic kids. I worked with developmentally delayed children. I worked with behavioral kids. And within that context, I can't believe this guy's still teaching. And if you raise your hand to a kid, if you hurt a kid in a way that is purposeful and mean, you should not be able to go back to a classroom no matter what kind of anger management you take. And a bad day is a bad day. But this is absolutely unbelievable. June 29th, this was posted. Today's June 30th. My birthday, incidentally. So happy birthday me. Tomorrow's Canada Day. I always get fireworks on my birthday, I say, because I always get to go to the Canada Day fireworks, and it's like, hey, thanks Canada for my birthday fireworks. So it's kind of cool. But man, yesterday it was posted, and I'm so mad about this. Okay, here we go. A teacher in BC's Fraser Valley has been suspended for cuffing two students in class for unrelated criminal charges that were ultimately stayed. Unrelated, but still worth mention. He cuffed, and it's so interesting that CBC is saying he didn't hit them, he cuffed them. So what's the difference between, right? I've been cuffed, I have a British mom, so of course I've been cuffed, quick cuff around the ear roll, right? But not in school. Not by a teacher who then asked me, "Are you really that dumb?" Yeah, no, I don't think so. That's not appropriate and shouldn't be acceptable in classrooms. Okay, back to the article. Here we go. Sudhir Raj Panatoji Jabber. Sorry, I've totally missed that one. That one's terrible. Was teaching at a Chilliwack High School in December 2017 when he struck two grade 9 students, not cuffed, struck this time, okay? Two grade 9 students on the back of the head with his hand, according to a recent disciplinary decision from the BC Commissioner for Teachers Regulation. This happened in 2017. He physically assaulted students, multiple students, and it's 2020, and he's only now been punished. And do you know what his consequence is for hitting two students in the back of the head? Back to this. One student was struck for making a loud noise on a microphone during a drama class, while the other answered a question incorrectly in math class. How dare you? Jabber also reportedly asked the latter, "Are you really that dumb?" The teacher was charged with assault and uttering threats to follow the following year for an unrelated incident. Jabber admitted to losing his temper, raising his voice, and striking an adult with an open hand, according to the disciplinary decision. That's assault. I would have charged him. The charges were stayed, in part because the teacher agreed to counseling, including anger management training. Really? Really? That's precedent setting, I believe. Back to this. As punishment, in the BC Commissioner for teachers regulation decided to suspend Jabber's teaching certificate for 5 days beginning June 22nd, 2020. Jabber was also ordered to complete courses on creating a positive learning environment and reinforcing respectful professional boundaries at the Justice Institute of BC, also known as Re-Education Camp. I'm sure he'll learn how to be a nice woke post-national leader in his community, right? Hitting kids, really? And that's okay? You just got to go for some training and have your professional license suspended for 5 days at the end of the school year in the middle of a pandemic? Lame. Absolutely not nearly enough. And I wonder why they went so easy on him. I wonder why. I couldn't imagine why they'd go easy on him. I couldn't imagine it. I don't know why. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. And have a wonderful, wonderful